Well, of course, one of the offseason headlines for the Nashville Predators has been the addition of Nino Niederreiter. But what exactly are the Preds getting in their new forward? For that, we'll talk to Jared Ellis from Locked On Hurricanes, a guy who's watched a lot in Nino in the past couple of seasons. He's going to tell us whether Niederreiter really does fit in well with that second line, whether he can become a 30-goal scorer for the Preds and what he needs to do in order to get there, and an outside perspective on how close the Preds are to contending for a cup. That's coming up today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com. Normally, I have a partner in crime, but Ann is off this week. So instead, we have a little bit of a crossover planned. Nino Niederreiter, of course, coming to the Nashville Predators last week. So we went out to Jared Ellis, who's the host of Locked On Hurricanes. We got his thoughts on Nino's fit with the Predators, whether he fits in well with the Predators' second line, his style of play and how that fits in with the Preds and what they want to do, and whether he thinks Nino Niederreiter can potentially become a 30-goal scorer. That's an interesting topic. We get into it with Jared Ellis. So without further ado, here is our crossover with Locked On Hurricanes. Well, of course, one of the big headlines for the Predators has been the addition of Nino Niederreiter. And to give us some insight on the Preds' new player, we have a guy who watched him for the last couple of years, Jared Ellis from Locked On Hurricanes. Jared, how's it going, man?
It's going great today. Like I was saying before we started recording, was able to get back in the gym today after a couple months out. So I'm feeling great today.
Yeah, it's good to have you. My dog in the background is apparently very happy in that as well, as you just hear him chime in. He's equally as happy about Nino Niederreiter coming to the Nashville Predators. Of course, a 2-year deal worth $4 million a year. Give us the skinny, man. Like, you've seen Nino the past couple of years. What kind of player are the Preds getting?
So you are getting an absolutely fantastic player. Was a real pillar of the Hurricanes offense there on that second and third line where he would typically slot in at. He really provided some much needed, not necessarily depth scoring because, he wasn't necessarily a depth guy. He was a big name for us, but always providing offense, when we needed it. There was a few times over the past few years where your top guys like Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, and Andrei Svechnikov, when they were struggling offensively, and Nino was stepping up and really carrying the offense, especially back at the end of last year, whenever we had a bunch of guys out with COVID. He was absolutely carrying us, and he is a phenomenal player. It's absolute steal of a contract for you guys. We had some cap issues, so we couldn't do that contract. But an absolute steal for you guys. It's still crazy that we acquired him in a 1-for-1 deal with Minnesota by sending them Victor Rask.
Victor Rask. My guy. Like, there was a trade I think a lot of Wild fans are looking back on still to this day going, dear God, man, dear God. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I noticed about Nino Niederreiter. Obviously, we played each other, a couple of seasons ago in the postseason. Predators fans had a pretty good look at him. I mean, he seems to kind of fit the Predators' identity, where it's just like this strong 200-foot game, aggressive forechecking, kind of relentless, suffocating pressure at all times. And that was the thing I remember about watching Nino Niederreiter is I was watching him and be like, you know what? He plays exactly like the kind of way you want the Nashville Predators to play. And it seems like that's translating a lot over where it's, he played this big style over in Carolina that fits in so perfectly well with the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, that's exactly how the Hurricanes play. They play a really strong and fast 200-foot game. They are constantly, pressuring you and right on top of you. I mean, you look at their head coach, a 2-time Selke winner for a reason. Yeah, they're a really strong defensive team, and fit that bill perfectly whenever he was here. So he, like I said, he was a pillar of our team, and with you guys playing a similar style, I think that's really going to translate well for you guys. And he's a guy that's been in the league for a long time as well. So he's also going to be able to provide some veteran leadership for you guys as well, because I know you guys, which we'll talk about later, have done quite a bit of retooling over the past couple of years. So that'll be something that fits in well for you guys, especially here in Raleigh. Yeah, he was played under Justin Williams, Jordan Stahl, coaches being Rod Brindamore and Tim Gleason. He was able to learn from a lot of good leaders. So he's also going to be able to provide some off-ice stuff for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think that's something the Predators could absolutely use in their room too, because they have a lot of good character guys. Of course, Niederreiter is really good friends with Roman Josi, and there is I don't know if you heard the story where Nino Niederreiter said he woke up the day of his contract and thought he was going to go to the Anaheim Ducks. Like they had the best offer on the table, and he said Roman Josi, like, I think, texted him in the middle of the night and was like, "Hey man, what's it going to take for you to come here?" And then just a few hours later, Nino had signed a contract with Nashville after talking to Roman Josi. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of the player that Niederreiter is, that the Predators would go all out in recruiting him like that. I mean, that's, you hear a lot of players like kind of stay out of it, like let the agents do what they need to do the business end, all that good stuff. But, here's the Nashville Predators going all out and trying to bring Nino in. I think that says a lot about the character he has and the type of player he is.
Yeah, he is a phenomenal character guy. He's a phenomenal player. I was trying to find a clip from one of the post-game press conferences from back in, I think it was February. It was after a pretty ugly loss. And I couldn't find it, because it was so far back. But, he flat out said that there was no excuses, that they did not play, that they're the way they should have. And, mistakes that were being made, penalties that were being taken. He's a guy that will hold guys accountable. He's not afraid to speak up. There's so many guys, not just in the NHL, sports in general, that they'll just kind of sit back, do their thing, and, not really speak up when guys are messing up out there on the field or the ice or court or whatever. Nino is not one of those guys. He's going to hold guys accountable. And so if you say Matt Duchene or whatever takes a really ugly penalty and it costs you guys a game, he's going to call him out for it. He's not just going to sit back and, let things ride. He's not that kind of player. And he holds himself accountable as well. He's a guy that, if he didn't play a good game, he's going to admit to the fact that he didn't play a good game. He's not going to make excuses for anything. I think that speaks a lot to his character and how the Hurricane system, really kind of developed him as a player as well. They are a team that holds guys accountable for what they do on the ice. And he provides a lot. I remember, it was training camp 2019. We talk about how good of a character he is. He's also a really good ambassador for your organization when it comes to fans. Because training camp back in 2019, I remember, around back, when players be coming out after practice and, all that stuff. He came out and he was talking to his, I think, then girlfriend, fiance, or whatever. He literally hung up the phone and started talking, taking pictures, signing autographs, all that stuff with all the fans. He took time with every single person, did not make anyone feel rushed. It wasn't, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? No, he took his time with every single person. So he's also a very good ambassador for your organization.
Hopefully he didn't have to do the conversation when he got home. Why did you hang up on me? That wasn't part of that.
No, I remember him saying that, hey, I'll call you back. There's folks here that want to talk. So I do remember that. But yeah, he's a really good ambassador for your organization as well.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Nino Niederreiter's hockey fit with the Predators in just a second and just how well he does fit in with that Predators second line. But first, want to mention today's show is brought to you by BetOnline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every single league from Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, WNBA, MLS, combat sports, esports, even golf. BetOnline also continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, podcasts, prop bets, everything like that. They have you covered. So head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening right now. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's talk about the hockey fit for a little bit for Nino Niederreiter. It seems like, barring any other big move for the Nashville Predators, which, we can talk about that a little bit later, it seems like he's going to be slotted in as kind of the go-to second-line winger for the Nashville Predators. Now we know he's got a little bit of a scoring pop, 24 goals last year. But it's interesting that some of the comments that Preds fans have given is that, we're still not sold on him being kind of that go-to secondary scoring line winger. What are your thoughts as somebody who's been able to watch him?
So I do think he has that potential. For you guys, I really, really do. Here in Raleigh, past season, he was on the third line most of the time with Jordan Stahl and Jesper Foss. That was our best line by far all season long. Yeah. With the Hurricanes, it says first, second, third, fourth. It's very fluid here. Rod Brind'Amour is never, dead set on this is the first line, this is the second line. Yeah. Everyone, if third line is the best line, they're going to get the most minutes. And if the fourth line is the best line, they're getting the most minutes out there. So he really has that potential. But I think giving that opportunity on the second line of taking on a bigger role, top six is a bigger role than middle or bottom six. So I think he really has that potential. And I think he can take it to that next level of being a 30-plus goal scorer for you guys. I really think it's there. And again, y'all's system is similar to ours. So I think it can happen. It's just going to be one of those things of, it's one thing to talk about it right now, but we've got to wait for the season to get here to see if he's able to follow through with that. But I do definitely think it can be done for sure, because he's been on the up the past couple of seasons. That year we had in the bubble, the 1920 season, he had a bit of a down year that year. I believe he was coming off an injury then. So he's been back up. So I think he can really do it. He's got momentum on his side.
Yeah. How much of that do you think depends on who he's with? Obviously it sounds like he's going to be either with Ryan Johansen or Mikael Granlund, two very capable playmaking centers. But, if he's not, like, maybe they shuffle him around a little bit or shuffle lines. Is he's somebody that can kind of create his own stuff, or is his stats really going to depend on a playmaker playing with him?
I think it'll be a bit of both. He definitely can. We were down like half of our roster. We were playing with half of an AHL team, and he was carrying that offense and he was creating his own stuff. So he absolutely can do that, but putting him with a really good playmaker, that's just going to take it to the next level for him of getting him over that 30 goal hump. Mm-hmm. And I think it would really just be a combination of both, honestly.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting transition for the Hurricanes too, because you lose Niederreiter, you lose Trocheck, but you bring in like Brent Burns and a couple other interesting guys. Is it just kind of seems to be like an interesting offseason for the Hurricanes over there?
Yeah, it does seem to be an interesting offseason for sure. This last offseason, we had a lot of turnover. This season, again, a lot of turnover. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. Again, you mentioned Brent Burns. He, is 37 years old. And that was something that really worried me at first. But then talking with JD from Locked On Sharks, telling me just how good he takes care of himself. He's already in Raleigh working out with the team, and it's July 25th, and he was here last week doing that. So that does make me feel good there. He had like 52, 54 points on a really bad San Jose team last year. Yeah. And this year he'll likely be paired up with Jacob Slavin on that first pairing. So he can really step back in terms of the defensive side of things and really focus on what he does best on the offensive side. So that'll be really, really good for him. We also brought in Max Pacioretty from Vegas, which we got for virtually nothing, which is still mind-blowing. I imagine he's probably going to slot in kind of where Nino did. Well, not necessarily where Nino did. I think he's going to be more of where Trocheck was on the second line. And then some other guys like Lane Pedersen, Dylan Coghlan. So we brought in some guys. It's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. I was just talking with Sarah, the old host from Locked On Kings and Locked On NHL, who also covers the Chicago Wolves, about guys there that could potentially be making the jump up. And definitely a few guys that to look out for there. And obviously we still got a lot of offseason left, so there's no telling what other kinds of moves that'll be made. Jake Gardner's contract has been one that we've been looking at potentially getting rid of because it's $4 million cap hit. If that wasn't there, we probably aren't having this conversation right here.
All right, well, in just a second, Jared and I are going to talk about where this signing puts the Predators in terms of contention for a cup. Does this get them closer to where they need to be? And we also have a few thoughts on a potential rivalry between the Predators and Hurricanes. You'll want to pay attention to that. But first, want to remind you about Friday's show. Barring any big breaking news, we are going to be doing a special look at the top 5 best and top 5 worst free agent signings in Nashville Predators history. Yep, it is a big topic of conversation that's come up here lately. Who are some of the big swings that David Poile made contact with, and who are the big swings that flum out in spectacular fashion? So just a reminder, that is coming up on Friday's show, barring any weird, spectacular breaking news. And it kind of seems like the Nashville Predators have kind of been bouncing around that spot. When you look at the stats, no team other than the Pittsburgh Penguins has had more playoff appearances since the first lockout than the Nashville Predators. And yet, whenever you think about them, they're always kind of in like the spot where people are like, yeah, they're there, but do we see them winning? No. And then, all it takes is maybe 1 or 2 extra pieces, some youth coming up to really recycle everything and kind of give them a new lease on life going forward and reopening that cap window a little bit. And it seems like the Hurricanes are right there. So who knows? Like maybe we'll see like an all Southern Stanley Cup final coming up here in a little bit.
That would be absolutely fantastic to see that. Just 2 Southern market teams going back and forth in the Stanley Cup. Even if it wasn't, the Hurricanes and the Predators, it would still be absolutely phenomenal to see that. Make the hockey elitists mad.
Yes, for sure. And imagine the barbecue bets that would go on during that Stanley Cup final. You have like the Tennessee Memphis style barbecue versus the Carolina mustard vinegar, all that good stuff.
You'd lose.
No, I don't know about that. I think
you'd absolutely lose that bet.
That was the biggest fights online during our playoff series like last year was whenever anybody brought out the barbecue. Like that was like the one thing that caused the most fights on Twitter was when somebody brought up Tennessee versus Carolina barbecue.
Nah, I mean, you're better than St. Louis.
Yeah. Do they have barbecue or do they just like take whatever fish out of the?
They have their stuff, but it's there. They're really the only 2 like competition. It's going to be between us and Dallas. It's going to be it. You can try, but like you're not going to.
Yeah, let's hope Kansas City doesn't get an NHL team, and I think we're good. I think we're set.
Yeah, that would be a fight. That would be a fight.
That would be a fight. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Nashville Predators, of course, have had an interesting offseason too. I know some of your listeners had some questions about what the Preds are doing, so
Yeah.
give you a
So
chance.
you already touched on it a little bit, but realistically, where do you see Nino Niederreiter fitting in the lineup come opening night for you guys?
Well, I do think he's probably what the Preds are looking for in terms of their second line winger. I mean, you look at last season's second line, and it was just abysmal. Now, obviously, like they're not going to score as much as your top line, but it
Yeah.
was at the point where either Johansen or Granlund, whoever that number 2 center was, would make a great play, give it to either Luke Cunnin or Ellie Tolvanen, who are second line wingers last year, and it would just die on their stick. Like it was that bad where just the play would die on their stick. So when you look at Nino Niederreiter, who is a guy that seems to be really good at kind of getting those garbage goals, like, kind of get in tight, get into the tough places, and really kind of capitalize on, a really good playmaker making some plays. He seems like the perfect counterpoint to that line. And I would see him maybe slotting in right there as the number 2 center, or I'm sorry, the number 2 winger. And it'd be interesting to see who is on the other end. They could go back to Ellie Tolvanen, who's a little bit more of a 200-foot guy. Honestly, kind of somebody that, at least his game kind of reminds me of a younger Nino Niederreiter. So it'd be interesting to see him maybe play that opposite side, or they can go Phil Tomasino, who's more of kind of a speedy guy, a guy that kind of uses his athleticism to kind of make plays, kind of like a Vincent Trocheck. So that's somebody that I can envision maybe seeing Niederreiter slide in really good next to.
Yeah, again, that's just going to be one of those things that we got to wait till opening night for that.
Yeah. Sure.
And, I mentioned, the Hurricanes, doing a lot of retooling over the past couple of years. And the Predators, they've lost some guys, traded some guys, and brought guys in, again, like Nino. And, you mentioned the Predators, being behind only Pittsburgh in terms of playoff appearances since the first lockout, and all of this retooling. Where and how do you see this affecting the Predators' long-term outlook in terms of making a push for another Stanley Cup appearance and win this time?
Well, you look at what they did this offseason. Are they back on the same level as like Colorado or Edmonton or anybody like that? Probably not. But you look at what they did this offseason. Are they better than they were last year? I think that answers a resounding yes.
Yeah,
and look, I
I
know a lot of people are going to look and say, oh, the Predators, they need to tear it down and rebuild. They don't have any players to build around or anybody like that. They need to get younger, all these things. But, you look at the 4 highest paid players on the team last year. 2 of them had 40-goal seasons. One of them was a Norris Trophy finalist and put together the best scoring defenseman, like the best scoring season by a defenseman in over 30 years. And the other one was Ryan Johansen, who had his best season in a couple of years. And let's not forget, there's also UC Saros back there in the crease, who was a Vezina Trophy finalist. So there are a lot of really good pieces in their prime to build around. And so that to me is like one of those things. It's like, look, if Yossi's playing as well as he did last year, and UC Saros is playing as well as he did last year, and Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene are scoring at the rates they did, all they need are like supporting pieces. And that's why, you bring in Nino Niederreiter, who is definitely going to improve that second line and give the Preds some depth scoring that they didn't have. They brought in Ryan McDonough, who I think, the defense kind of tapered out a little bit last season. McDonough will certainly help kind of upgrade that defensive core. So look, nobody is going to sit here and say, oh, the Nashville Predators are all of a sudden in the cup hunt. But they're in a position where, hey, if they get hot at the right time, this is a team that could make a run. If everything goes right, they're in a position to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I look at the pieces that you guys have, and I definitely think Nashville is a playoff team for sure. And again, a team gets hot at the right time, they can make a run. You look at the Hurricanes back in 2019 when they made the run to the conference final. They're a team that just squeaked in the wild card, and then they got hot at the right time and made it to the conference final. So I totally understand the thing of getting hot at the right time. And I think that Nashville, if they add, a couple other guys, that they could very well be on, a Stanley Cup aspiration level team, because you mentioned all of those guys that are in their prime right now and playing great hockey. You never know what could happen.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the big thing too, is, a lot of people are kind of looking at Tampa and looking at Colorado and being like, oh, here's the blueprint to winning. And I get it. Like, you want to be sustainable when you win too, but all you have to do is win one cup. Like, just win a cup. That is hard. That is very hard to do. So if you can get the right combination of a team together that can get you one cup, that's worth it. Like, that is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to just even get there. The Hurricanes, they got there in, what was it, 01, 02, lost to Detroit. Wasn't until 05, 06 that they got back. Haven't been back since. Heck, you look at the season after that, they didn't even make playoffs.
Yeah.
So, and then you look at Nashville when they went to theirs every year after that, it was like, same with Pittsburgh, actually. It was one round lower.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. So it's hard to just even get there. So I do think that both of these teams, they're making the right moves for sure. And, we mentioned earlier, the barbecue fights and whatnot. The NHL is all about, regional rivalries. You look at Battle of Alberta, Battle of Florida. You imagine Seattle and Vancouver is going to be a thing now. All the California teams, the New York teams. The NHL and likes to push the Carolina and Washington rivalry. Obviously, they're division rivals and all that stuff. The playoffs a few years ago. Like, there's a lot of stuff there, for that to be a thing. But one thing that I don't think it's talked about as much, just how close the Hurricanes and the Predators are. In terms of geographic locations, given they are in different conferences. I do think that affects it. But why do you think that the NHL doesn't push that as much? I know, obviously, scheduling wise, because again, they are in different conferences. But whenever that does happen, it just feels like it's an afterthought almost. But you look back to those when we were in the same division, that realigned year. Yeah. Those games were scrappy. And then even the following season, like, they were scrappy. There was bad blood there for sure. And those teams did not like each other for sure. And I think that showed that could be a rivalry that the NHL could run with and make it a thing, And obviously, at the time, Eric Holla was there. And we don't like him here.
Still my favorite random player getting booed in Nashville Predators history.
Yeah, there was some off ice stuff with that we'll talk about. Once we stop recording there, that led to that. Sure. But why do you think that they don't push that as much? Because I think that could be a thing, regional wise, that they could really run with.
It's probably as simple as they're in different conferences, different divisions and all that. And look, you're obviously going to go back to, you want to see your rivals play like 6 times a year. You want to see them fighting for the standings. So maybe that's the reason where they're not really pushing that as much anymore. Like, obviously you think of like the old school like Blackhawks versus Red Wings rivalry. And when Detroit moved over to the East, they kind of started like promoting that a little bit less and kind of went back towards, Chicago versus St. Louis or Detroit versus Toronto or one of those teams over there. So, I get that you kind of want to push rivalries that are, fighting for something as the year goes on. But it would be fun. And I thought about this too, when the Atlanta Thrashers used to be around, like that would have been a fun, Nashville versus Atlanta rivalry. Just like I think, like a Nashville versus North Carolina rivalry over there in Raleigh would be fun. So, who knows? Maybe someday, the NHL will kind of group more based on regions and less on conferences. And then who knows? Maybe we'll get a barbecue trophy to hand over at the end of every year to see who's the best.
Yeah, that would be very cool. And again, like you said, it does make sense. They are in different divisions and different conferences, so they don't play each other as much. But again, I do think it would be something that was fun. It's cool and fun. And like you said, all the barbecue stuff, that would be really fun. I mean, you lose, but
it's still going to be the most delicious debate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It'd be so fun. One thing that I think the Hurricanes have dropped the ball on as far as their promo nights have been, their NASCAR night. Why aren't they doing Nashville and North Carolina? Yeah, it literally is NASCAR. They made a big deal about that during the playoff series. Why aren't you doing that? We're playing Vancouver. It'd be a fun night. Right? Some fun merch.
Yeah. You got to have like a Carolina diecast car. Like that's got to be out in the thing. Like even if it's just like a little like Hot Wheels, like mini Hurricanes car giveaway. Like you can do so much cool stuff with that.
Yeah, you seriously could. That's something they're consistently dropping the ball with. Y'all are the perfect opponents for that, for the merchandise and all that stuff. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I bet you would get a huge crowd on NASCAR night too between these two teams. Like if there is any two fan bases that would be the perfect crossover for NASCAR, it's the Predators and the Hurricanes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who knows? Maybe it'll happen. And there's also got to be a barbecue night. We've established that plenty of times. Yeah. Well, Jared, thank you for joining us. For our viewers here in Nashville, where can the people find your work?
Yeah, they can find the show on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this show on. And you can find it on YouTube at Locked On Hurricanes. You can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. And myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And for my listeners, where can they find you?
You can read my work at ontheforecheck.com. I'm a writer and editor over there, so you can find all my articles and stuff. For this show, same thing. Listen to wherever you get your podcasts. In the off season, we're putting new shows out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And also check out the Locked On Predators YouTube channel. If you like what you see, drop us a comment sometime. Let us know your thoughts on Nino Niederreiter, Nashville. Yeah, we'd be happy to have any new fans over here.
All right, guys, you know where to find them. And thanks for having me, Nick, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Take care.
You too.